Ladies and gentlemen, are you ready for the one and only show? Live from Houston, Texas. It's the go-to girl, professional comedian, TV producer, and founder of MarriedDate.com. It's millionaire matchmaker, Amber.
Welcome into Tough Love Tuesdays here on the Matchmaker Hotline. It's your girl, Matchmaker Amber Neal. Today we have sex therapist Jen Reed back in the building. Yay! We had so much fun with you last time. It was so juicy, such good stuff. And today it is Tough Love Tuesday. So as a matchmaker, I really want to get Jen's opinion on this because there's so many things that, require trust, really, to take it to that next level. And if you guys want to call in and be part of the show, 281-587-1540, 281-587-1540. Today we're going to talk about 7 questions that you must ask before you commit. Now, I want to really get your input, Jen, and see what you think. Because, when we fall in love, the world feels like this magical place. The grass is greener, the sky is bluer. But then after a while, unfortunately, love alone isn't enough.
Yeah.
To make the relationship really last over time. And the sad about nearly half of marriages ending divorce is super discouraging.
Yeah.
And, especially now with COVID and everything, the divorce lawyers are saying how that divorce request has gone through the roof. I'm like, what is going on? Just real quick on that. What is your just opinion as far as why would COVID make the divorce rate go?
Well, one of the most important things in a relationship that people don't realize is how much space we actually need in that relationship. So space, autonomy, right? Like defining who we are as our own individual self. And so many people, we leave, we go to work, or we go to happy hour with friends, or we go get a pedicure with our girls or whatever, just to get, and it's not just to get that space away from our partner, but we don't recognize how much we need that space away from our partner. And so right now, COVID shutting so many things down and making so much of that difficult to impossible for some people.
Yeah, seriously.
You're forced in your house, or in many, many cases, 1-bedroom apartment, and with no outlet, no escape, and nowhere to go, and nothing to do. And the other thing we talk about in relationships is communication, right?
Yes.
What do you have left to talk about when you've spent 24 hours a day, 7 days a week with somebody? What do you have left? There's only so much that you can talk about. And so that creates this well, what do we do now? And then you have to really decide, do I actually enjoy being around this person? And I think a lot of it, as from a psychological point of view, as far as I know, and many of the therapists I know, we've talked about this, there isn't a handbook on how to handle a pandemic and what's normal for the human brain to go through during a pandemic. And so, I talk to so many of my individuals and my couples, and, the other day, for example, I was talking to a couple and I said, how much do you think this is exacerbated by the COVID situation? And they said, we're doing great with that. That's not a big deal. And I said, I really want you to rethink that, because I think that you are being affected and you just don't realize it. Because just because you still get to leave and go to a job, you're not getting to do the things that you normally get to do. Your stress is building. Your anxiety is building. We're not used to wearing masks. Surgeons are used to wearing masks all day long, right?
Yeah.
We're not as a general population. So just how it, I know every time I put a mask on to go into the store, part of me feels like I'm about to go rob the place. And that's funny, but it also doesn't feel good, right? It's I've got to hide everything. I'm hiding my identity. I'm hiding who I am. And that doesn't feel good either on some cerebral, subconscious level. So that's affecting us too.
Well, the conspiracy theorists think that that's the point. Lose our identity and follow the masses.
Yeah. Except for the government's been tracking us for years, but all of a sudden,
all of a sudden, boom. But that's the thing. Do you find too, because there are so many different belief systems about what's really going on with us right now in the world, do you find that maybe you thought you knew your spouse, and then when these kind of things happen, you're like, I don't really feel that way that you feel. And then, or it could be political, it could be about race issues, it could be,
absolutely.
I mean, money problems, or
for sure.
how to actually survive it. Like,
absolutely, definitely. I mean, money problems, people are losing their jobs left and right. I know here in Houston, we are so based on the oil and gas industry, and that's tanking right now.
Yeah. So scary.
Yes. So yeah, financially, like that definitely does play a role in a lot of divorces and a lot of fights. There was something else that you just mentioned, and I wanted to go off of it.
Oh, I was just saying how people are getting divorced for like religion and
Black Lives Matter,
political,
and
race.
all of that. Like I have had couples come in and be like, "We're on opposite sides of the fence with this, and we didn't realize it."
How would they not know? Like, how do you not talk about your racial views? It's
huge.
You would think that would kind of slip out or something.
Right?
You'd hear the conversation, or when they talk to their friends, you would kind of notice something.
Yeah.
Wow. But then they wait till something happens, and
yeah.
Honestly, I don't think I would be. There's a few things that I could get past, probably. Like if we like different political candidates, and I understand that goes to the core of our values, but to me, that's not as bad. Like if you're straight out racist, and like for me personally, I have biracial children, that would just not work for me. Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about 7 things, pieces of advice here. I just want to kind of get your plug and see what you think. So, number 1 is really these are 7 things you must ask yourself before you commit, not after you commit. Everybody, it's real easy to let lust leave, and especially if they're super hot, you're going to get caught up in a situation. If you want to call in and be part of the conversation, 281-587-1540. You got a question for myself or Jen, call. We'd love to talk to you today, 281-587-1540. Y'all call into the Matchmaker Hotline. Okay, so number 1 is, do you trust your partner? And a lot of times people tend to, but, bury their head and say, yeah, because they don't really want to address that situation. But you're basically trusting them with your happiness and your future and potentially your future children. And the question is have they shown you that they're that type of person that you want as a partner, no matter what comes your way, like what we're dealing with right now?
Yeah, trust is such a funny word, or a funny idea. Yeah. Because it's so easy. I think that people trust, unless you've been burned over and over and over again, or have some family stuff, which a lot of people don't. A lot of people do have trust issues, but I think people tend to trust the person that they fall in love with very readily. It's easy to trust, and then it's easy to break. And once it's broken, it's so hard to get back. But ultimately, and I like the way that that's phrased, because what people don't realize, trust is a choice. You have to wake up every day and kind of decide, do I trust this person? Do I trust myself? Do I trust, whomever? But in regards to a relationship, there's so many different dynamics of trust too. Do I trust them to not cheat on me? Do I trust them to have my back emotionally if I'm faltering? Do I trust them to take care of the kids if you have kids together? Yeah. There's trust isn't just one area of our life. And so that's something, when you're talking about, do I trust this person, on all of the paradigms, like, do you trust them with every little thing? Yeah, and I think sometimes too, what you said is so big, because after you have been hurt or jaded, to me, I think the bigger question is, like, can I trust myself? Absolutely. That's where we get stuck, because the guy or the girl, whoever, they could be perfect. They could, and that's what I say with matchmaking. It's like, I can matchmake you all day long, but if you haven't healed from whatever you're abandoned, codependent, whatever your issues are, and or maybe even worth issues, that make you feel like, this guy's too great, I don't deserve him. He couldn't possibly, what does he want me for? And he's like, dude, like, I feel so lucky to be with you, but you're like, me? Right. And it's not going to work, no matter how much you love them. That's why they say love's not enough, because healing is so important. One thing, we're going over an article, you guys, the select7.com, if you guys want to follow along, and it's basically
7 questions that you must ask from a matchmaker perspective. And one of the things it says here is that there is a significant correlation between women having cold feet before their wedding and the divorce rates. Well, I was like, what, women? Interesting, right? And I saw something, so my daughter loves this show, Married at First Sight. Have you seen it?
Yeah.
Okay. So my daughter loves that show, so she got me watching it, and I was like complaining the whole time, like, oh my God, I hate these kind of shows. And she's like, oh, it's good, just watch it. So I started watching it with her, and one of the statistics on there I thought was really interesting. They were saying that 60% of couples that live together wind up, before they're married, actually wind up in divorce. I wonder why that is. Before you get married, what difference does it make, I wonder?
That's a really
so
good
many
question.
people do.
I don't know.
You know?
I don't know that I have the answer to that one, why living together would change things, because I would think that it would actually
help because you don't know them till you live with them. I don't think.
I think the only thing would be like expectations. If your expectation is, well, okay, we live together, but this is what needs to be worked on, and these are the issues. So maybe once we get married, that'll change, and then you realize that doesn't change. Is the only thing that I can really think of, like how you are before marriage is pretty much how it's going to be. So if you're expecting that change to happen, or you're expecting your partner to change just because you're become engaged, just because you're getting married, you might have like a couple of months of like that blissful, oh, we're just married, it's great. But then things will go back to the way that the status quo for the relationship.
Unless, I can see, like, a lot of times I say that people send their representative in the beginning. They want to be loved so bad that they're willing to be fake to get it.
Right.
And that eventually becomes a job, and it wears off. Do you find that guys, guys tend to think that they can change a girl the way girls think they can change a guy?
I don't think so. I mean, I could be wrong, but I think a lot of guys are not looking to change women the way that you see, women trying to think, well, I can change him if,
Why do we think? What is wrong with us? Like, why do we think that? That is crazy. Could not be the furthest thing from the truth. I think it's one of the biggest reasons I've seen women waste their time, waste their 20s, waste their 30s, and then your options are less as you get older. I mean, it just are. And it's so sad. So, okay, so definitely, do you trust your partner? And if you finding that you're struggling with that, because I think at that point maybe just is therapy.
Yeah, and I mean, and really deciding like how much of this lack of trust is because of my past and my issues, and how much of it is because they're not doing the things that are showing me that I can trust them, that I can rely on them.
Yeah, or they're triggering you some kind of way to make you feel. Because, I've seen that where people can have like the greatest person and people will vouch for them, and everybody gets a good energy about that person, and people that know them and mutual friends. It could be like, the most stellar person ever. Yeah. And they're like, I don't know if I can trust them. Do you feel like that's more like them saying, I don't know if I can trust me? Like, I don't know if I can trust me.
It could be. I mean, it's hard. That would be where therapy would come into play, is, and again, which area are you lacking that trust? Like, you can say, well, I trust that they're not going to cheat on me. Like, there's something about this person. I really don't think that they would cheat on me. But you know what? I don't trust them to catch me when I am having a bad day. I don't trust them to be empathetic with me whenever I'm struggling. I don't trust them to be able to communicate with me when we're having problems.
Yeah.
There's so many different dynamics. So I think when people are asked that question, do you trust your partner? I think one of the only things they think about is that cheating thing. Yeah. And that's where, when you're talking about like where they might say, well, yeah, I don't think that they'll do that. Although I will say this on cheating, anybody and everybody is capable. It doesn't matter who you are, where you're from, even yourself. If you think you would never do that, you're lying to yourself.
That's true. I agree. I think everybody has their limits and everybody has their temptations. And I think,
and their vulnerabilities.
Especially in today's world where everybody's just so vulnerable and it's kind of fear-based, you know, and it's just everybody's scared and who knows who people latch onto. And especially when, you know, the alcohol sales have gone up 400%.
Oh,
so I'm sure people are getting some beer goggles and making some bad decisions. You know what I mean? A lot of babies are going to be born in about 9 months. But okay, so number one is, do you trust your partner? So that's the number one thing you should ask before you commit. If you guys want to jump in on the hotline today, give us a call at 281-587-1540. We're talking with sex therapist Jen. Okay, so number two is, this is so big because we were just talking about this. Do you accept each other as you are? It says people in love sometimes assume that behaviors or characteristics they find troubling in their partner will fix themselves with time.
Yeah.
And they're generally disappointed to find out, if anything, these issues wind up escalating.
Yeah.
And a relationship where both parties not only allow the other to be themselves, but also love each other for their unique qualities is far more likely to last. And you should accept your partner and their imperfections as they are today. Yes. The key is to not to find someone who is perfect. I mean, there is no such thing.
No.
It's so funny. It's really to find someone whose flaws you can live with, or better yet, can't live without. I was just telling somebody that yesterday. It kills me, and I'm sure you hear this all the time with infidelity. There's that saying, like, you're lucky if you get 80% in a person. Do you agree?
Yeah, I think shooting for 80%. Stop trying to shoot for 100%.
Yeah, no one is. I don't think anyone's going to be that. I mean, honestly, because there's 20% of things about myself I don't even like.
Right.
You know, so it's like, how would I think I'm going to find 100 in somebody else? But that's the sad part, is so many times people will leave the 80 for the 20, and because it could be that their sex life is diminished, or they're fighting all the time, and the mood for sex is not there, so they go out and get the one thing. This one guy I know, he said that he was really into this girl, he really loved her, but she didn't perform oral sex, and so he wanted it, and she told him she was saving that for marriage, even though she had 4 kids. I thought that was pretty funny.
Yeah, I mean, and you know what though, but that is something to know, like, what are the deal breakers, and if being with somebody that isn't gonna go down on you is a deal breaker, there's nothing wrong with that. And just know it and own it and be prepared, to find that. I mean, there's nothing wrong with saying, like, this is what I'm looking for in the bedroom, and I'm not going to compromise what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
If that's not met, this is what I'm looking for in a person and how I'm treated, and I'm not going to compromise that. There are certain things, but just recognize that comes with other things getting, for example, I've known a lot of people who are like, I will never date a smoker. And then they find out, everything else is so good. Like this, we work on this, we work on that. So I guess I can deal with the smoking. And this is how we've made that work, is they have to brush their teeth before we make out, before we kiss. Yeah. And like, that's, so we come to terms. So you figure out, what are your real deal breakers.
And pick your battles. Jeez, like, some people are so petty with it. Definitely. And I'm like, who cares? Like, I mean, especially, like, I understand politics and kids and religion and stuff, but I've heard women like, oh, if he's not X height or whatever, and I'm like, dude.
I'm a heightist myself.
I mean, I like height. I get it. I love to climb that mountain. Okay, like, my daughter's father's 6'5". Okay, so trust me, I love a tall man, but and I don't love him, but back in the past I did, of course. Let's clarify that. But no, I love tall men. I mean, I think every woman does, right?
Yeah.
But honestly, as long as the inches are in the right place, who cares? I mean, right? Oh, let's keep it real. Let's keep it all the way real.
Yeah.
I mean, once you find out that he's a great lover and you love that part of him, those couple inches in height are not gonna matter.
Yeah, no, that is true. But I do know several, even tall women who are like, he's just got to be taller than me. Like, I'm not asking for them to be like a foot taller than me.
Yeah.
But something where because even tall women want to wear heels too, but they want to feel like, and then God bless the women who are like, I don't care.
Yeah, and I'm really thinking about it, because it is true. We do judge it from our perspective to a point, because I'm 5'4", barely. So to me, everybody's tall.
I'm 5'1.5",
there's very few people that are not. But to my daughter, for example, like I said, her dad's 6'5". She wound up being 5'9", and modeling and super tall, and she likes to wear heels too. And it's kind of the same thing. And her husband's 6'2".
Yeah.
And I think it's one of those things where it makes you conscious. Then I think it's gonna. I have another friend who I think she's like 5'10", 5'11", and she struggles to find guys that are always tall enough, because she's like, I want a man that makes me feel feminine.
Yeah.
I'm like, girl, there's a step stool with his name on it. Like, it's all good. It's not that important. But I can understand we like what we like. But it's really just about not trying to change someone else.
Right.
At the end of the day.
Right. You do want to be able to love them for who they are. You don't have to like everything about them. That's not what that tip in the article is talking about. There are definitely things that you can say, this irritates the ever-living heck out of me, but I can live with it.
Yeah.
And if I need a break from it, well, then I just need a break from it, and I go out with the girls or go out with the guys or whatever the case may be, and just go,
Okay. Woosah. Okay, cool. So if you guys are listening and you want to join into the show today, 281-587-1540. Sex therapist Jen is on, and we're dishing some knowledge about 7 things you must find out about your partner before you commit and not after. So many times we're complaining about those things, but we really let Les lead, and we didn't find out if we liked the person, because you can love them all day, air quotes, but you can't stand the ground they walk on. And trust me, over time, sex, I think, is a huge, I don't know what a percent, but I think it's a huge part of a relationship.
I mean,
at least
I will generally say, so there's a saying in the sex therapy world that sex only is about 25% of the relationship until there's something wrong in the relationship, and then it becomes 75% of the relationship.
Wow, so real, yeah.
But I will tell you, like, just from my experience, like, I love this theory. I'm going to go off on a little bit of a tangent. There's this theory called the triangular theory of love.
Okay.
And it kind of posits that there are 7 different types of romantic love. And at each corner of the triangle, one you have passion, which can be equated to sex. It's not just about sex, but passion. The other corner is commitment. Another corner is friendship. And then in between each one, you have, you're committed and you're friends, but you're lacking in the passion department. You're passion and you're committed, but you don't really like each other. You're lacking in the friendship department. Or you're friends and you're passionate, but you're not really committed to one another. And then consummate or ideal love is a balance of all 3. So that's almost like 33%. I mean, it doesn't have to be exactly 33 of all 3 of those to have consummate or ideal love. But passion is a whole corner of the triangular theory of love, and that makes total sense to me.
I think be true to yourself. If you have a high sex drive, I think if you really try to, because people think of sex and then you think, oh, we're just going to be compatible. Like, everybody loves sex.
Right.
Dude.
Not everybody loves sex.
Yeah.
And believe it or not, it's not always guys either. Like, so many people think, well, like, the men always has the higher sex drive. Working with the couples that I work with, I'll tell you about 40% of my desire discrepancy cases are women that have the higher sex drive, 35 to 40%.
Wow.
So it's a lot higher than people realize, that women have higher sex drives than their male partners.
Wow. Well, we're going to take a break real quick. A good place to end it. We'll continue from there. If you guys stay tuned, we're only going to take a really quick 1 to 2 minute break. You're listening to Edge Radio at 101.7 FM, 1540 AM. Go ahead and call into the hotline. We'd love to talk to you today. 281-587-1540. 281-587-1540. You can also watch us online on Edge Radio Network on Facebook, or if you're streaming out of town, edgeradionetwork.com. Give us about 2 minutes and we'll be right back. You're watching the Matchmaker Hotline.
This is former Rocket Robert Reed. This is Noah Jewel about and we want to talk to you about a new program, podcast. We'll talk about former athletes who are doing a lot of things in the community. Various athletes and various sports. Swimming, track, soccer, football, baseball, former and current athletes here in the greater Houston area. All promoting growth. All promoting that which makes us all better. Edge Radio. Truth still matters.
When people stop talking to each other, society is on the edge. Let's bring them back. Edge Radio, because truth still matters.
We work our whole lives to support our families. With one accident or illness, it can all be gone in an instant. Now there's a smart, affordable way to protect your family. Go to findhealthbenefits.com and discover low-cost life insurance for as little as $2 per month. Add to that a tax-deferred annuity that can help you protect your assets and grow your money for retirement. Learn more. Go to findhealthbenefits.com or call 877-235-6094. A critical illness strike without warning and wipe out your life savings. In fact, it's the reason for bankruptcy. Find Health Benefits offers an affordable solution. Get up to $50,000 if you get cancer, stroke, or a heart attack, giving you the peace of mind to focus on getting better while the plan helps you to pay your bills and medical expenses. Learn more. Go to findhealthbenefits.com or call 877-235-6094. 66% of seniors spend more time shopping for cable TV than Medicare plans. Most say because it's just too confusing. Laws change every year. The wrong plan could cost you thousands and prevent you from seeing the doctors you want. Introducing FindHealthBenefits.com. Save time, save money, see specialists without referrals. Go to FindHealthBenefits.com or call 877-235-6094 for this informative brochure.
Society is on the edge. Let's bring them back. Edge Radio, because truth still matters.
We work our whole lives to support our families. With one accident or illness, it can all be gone in an instant. Now there's a smart, affordable way to protect your family. Go to findhealthbenefits.com and discover low-cost life insurance for as little as $2 per month. Add to that a tax-deferred annuity that can help you protect your assets and grow your money for retirement. Learn more. Go to findhealthbenefits.com or call 877-235-6094.
Hey guys, welcome back into the all-new Matchmaker Hotline here on Edge Radio, 101.7 FM, 1540 AM.
We work our whole lives to...
Amber Neal in studio with sex therapist Jen. Hey, welcome back in. This is my girl, man. She has been so fun to talk to. So before the break, some people might be shocked to find out that you were saying in your practice that sometimes women actually have a higher sex drive than their partner.
Oh, yeah.
And what's the medical, clinical?
Desire discrepancy.
Desire discrepancy.
When there's a difference between how much one person wants it.
I'm going to start using that word. You have a desire discrepancy. Yes. I love that. How do you get past that kind of thing? I mean, God, that seems like a lot of work.
It can be. It's because one of the big things that we try and focus on is redefining sex. So sex is not just about penetration and or ejaculation, which is what most people or orgasm rather. Most people make the goals of sex about orgasm and penetration.
Yeah.
And when you do that, you diminish so much of what sex is actually about. And sex is about having fun with your partner, and it's about connecting with your partner. So we find other ways that don't necessarily include penetration to still be sexy and fun in the bedroom. Like, you can still play with things, you can play with foods. You know how erotic foods are, or take a shower together, or just like a mutual massage. So we work on these different dynamics so that it can still have a piece of passion with it, but isn't necessarily what we would classically define as sex being,
And I heard from a friend, you want to be careful with that food, okay?
Oh,
you don't want to get a UTI real quick.
I was talking about like blindfolding and feeding each other. I'm not talking about putting food in your No. Keep the food out of the vagina. Keep the food out of the anus. Like,
seriously,
they have specialty, like specialized, flavored things that you can put in there.
Yeah.
They have flavored lubes. They have flavored condoms.
Yeah.
Try those. Don't put that strawberry in the vagina.
Go see my girl Beth over at Dog Way. She's got all the hookup on all the anything you need to spice it up. It made me think during our break. I was just curious, like, when you come into those situations where that's just the drive is one thing, and I can see how you could do other things to kind of like spice that up. But what if have you ever had a situation where your clients just totally like different things sexually?
Oh yeah.
I mean, like night and day, and it's just like, it's just not even enjoyable at all.
Yeah, and sometimes, unfortunately, that love's not enough to get them through that. Sometimes we can work on it, and they can get to a place of compromise, or to a place where they're able to find mutual pleasure and mutual satisfaction within the sexual part of their relationship, but not always, unfortunately.
Are there any things in particular that you can think of off the top of your head that like really pull people apart sexually when it comes to that kind of thing?
Different fetishes, fantasies.
Yeah.
Like I know a couple that, he really wants to have a threesome, and her answer is just, it's no. It's always going to be no. And he continues, I don't know if I can go the rest of my life without a threesome. I'm used to having threesomes.
Oh, wow.
I've had threesomes in previous relationships. It's what I like. It's what I want. And, and so obviously she's left feeling like she's not enough.
Wow. I was going to say, that just goes totally against her basic blueprint of being wanted.
Yeah.
Dang. I don't know how to deal with that. Like, I feel like that should come up. I feel like that's a conversation. Again, this is why we don't want to let lust lead, and we want to ask these questions before we find out, because if not, you're going to be seeing Jen.
Yes.
Yeah, which is good anyway. It's always good to get therapy. But, I can't imagine because guys have a hard, there's couples I've literally got married. I don't even get invited to the wedding because that's how much guys don't want to admit they need help.
Yeah.
I can't imagine a guy having to come to you and going, sex life is.
Yeah, I get a lot of, so it's kind of funny though, because our office managers around here that answer the phones for Houston Relationship Therapy, they'll often get like, do you have any guys that work there? And we don't have any guys that work in our office.
Yeah.
And they'll say, but Jen is great with men. She can think logically.
Yeah.
She's gonna make you feel comfortable, which is really great. I love that they say that about me.
Yeah.
And I find that I do tend to help guys feel a lot more comfortable, because I do have a very logical side to my brain.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not gonna sit there and talk to you about your feelings all day long.
Yeah, I'm the same way.
Like, we're gonna talk about what you think about this, and how, and I'm goal oriented.
Yeah.
So we're looking at goals and what that looks like, or solution. I'm what they call solution focused therapist. So let's find solutions.
Yeah.
And a lot of men tend to go, okay, because, you think about like one of the classic relationship dynamics that you hear is like women going, stop trying to fix my problem and just listen to me. Right? Like,
are y'all listening, guys? Sometimes we just need a hug.
yeah.
Just saying.
Yes. So, men statistically tend to want to fix. And so when they come into therapy with me and they get somebody who is like, okay, let's find the solution to this. Let's see if we can fix this. they go, okay, cool.
Yeah. God,
You're not going to
Jen.
talk to me about how I'm feeling about everything. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about your feelings.
Yeah, I'm gonna sneak it in on the backside.
Yeah, but not everything.
Do you think couples, one of the things that, my ADD is out of control, but certain things make me think of other things that I've heard problems with. One of the things that women today really struggle with because of work and money and everything, does that affect couples sexually when a woman makes more money sometimes?
Oh, yeah. I mean, not every guy. There are, you talked about Married at First Sight a second ago. I don't know if you watched any of the new season.
I started, actually, it's so funny, my daughter would laugh. So one of the couples, there was like a follow-up to them where they actually got married, they actually had a baby, and following up with their whole relationship, and then one of the couples didn't, but that show's interesting. It's interesting because matchmaking itself is very similar to that in the old world, in the way the old school matchmaking was. It was like you have a husband, you're going to meet him the day before your wedding, and our families have decided that this is who you're going to be with. And from listening to people from the old world matchmaking family style, I can see the advantages to that. Yeah, because when you are young, you don't know. I mean, we think we know, and you don't realize how much you don't know until you do get in your 40s. You're like, whoa, I didn't know anything. Yeah. I mean, compared to what you know now. And so I can see where the wisdom of your parents and grandparents could say it's really not as important about looks, even though you do want to be attracted. Right. But eventually, there's one of the couples on there, she was literally freaking out.
You're talking about Jamie and Doug?
Is that what it is?
I think from
the blonde-headed
season
guy?
1.
Yeah. And and she's at the wedding, and she's like,
not attractive.
Yeah.
I have 2 kids.
But they got 2. Oh my God, did you have a boy?
Second one.
Was it a boy?
I can't remember.
Oh my God, I wouldn't know if it was a boy because I know they wanted a boy. I know they lost one.
My mom does.
But I know, Brianna, was it a boy? Do you know if it was a boy? Do you happen to know? You know? Okay, I just want to know because they lost a son too. She had a miscarriage, so I know he really wanted a boy. Hey, Brianna, check the audio. We got a message here. There might be an audio issue. Can you check that? Just make sure it's okay. But it's so funny because so the funny thing about it was that let me back up and say, I saw a study one time that said 75% of women surveyed admitted they were not attracted to their husband when they first met. Isn't it funny how much more visceral men are? Yeah. And it's like, if people would actually look into the things that really matter, that are going to be the longevity, and look what happened with them. She wound up falling in love with him. She wound up being attracted to him. He had a nice body, so I don't know what the deal is. But what do you think about that?
I agree with that. I think that a lot of women aren't immediately attracted to their partners, and statistically, women aren't as visual anyway. Like when we look at how people learn and what men statistically are more visual. They just are. They I talk to guys all the time. I have another couple right now where I was like, try, because he was like, I just can't seem to hold on to what she's saying. And then if she gets really upset, I said, try taking notes when she's talking. I know that's going to seem really weird, but take notes. He took notes when she was talking to him, and it just goes into a different part of how your brain holds memory. Yeah. You learn, or you go into memory by looking at things, you go by hearing things, you learn by, touching and doing things. And so there's this connection of just being able to see it in black and white and read it, and how much that can affect. And you think about, the porn industry, for example, and how much bigger that is for men than it is for women. Yeah. In all honesty, and even fantasies. I can't remember. I'm not going to give you stats because I don't remember stats very well. But when you ask a man what he's thinking about when he's masturbating, for example, and he's usually fantasizing. If he's not watching porn, he's looking at something in his head. And women, when you ask them what they're thinking about when they're masturbating, so many of them will say, I'm just thinking about how it's feeling. I'm not thinking about anything else. I'm just concentrating on how good it feels. Yeah. And so, to me, that is fascinating. And men are like, really? You're not picturing another guy? You're not picturing me? You're not picturing anything? I'm like, no, it just feels good. Yeah. And men are like, oh man, what are you thinking about? Well, this chick that walked by me earlier, all of a sudden, she popped in my head. I'm thinking about about you, honey?
That's so funny. Do you think that girls tend to think about like, or you know, like, because we're more emotional, I think, in that sense. I mean, I think that, like, I've heard some girls say that they like to masturbate to the thought of their man, like, or their last sexual encounter with their man. Like,
Yeah,
that's super hot, too.
Yeah.
You think guys are like that, too? Do you think they really get off on their thoughts of their sex life with their woman?
I do, especially when it's new, or they'll masturbate to, like, you know, an old. Yeah, definitely. I don't think men don't ever think about the woman that they're with, even if they've been together for years. Yeah. At
what point do you like? Let's say that you're one of these people that like to make homemade movies with your partner. What is there like an expiration date as far as? Once you're in a new relationship, should you throw those away? Should you hide those? Should you keep that for the vault? You know what I mean?
I want to answer that.
Fair in this situation. My bad.
Look, I mean, is it wise to hang on to them?
Yeah.
Probably not. I'm not going to say that you should or shouldn't throw them away.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not going to dictate that. That's a conversation to have with your partner, in all honesty, is like, how would you feel if you found that I still had these and I looked at it every once in a blue moon, you know, because we're humans, and to think that we're only going to fantasize or think about one person for the rest of our life is pretty illogical.
Yeah. Because even if you just look at some super hottie on the red carpet or a commercial.
I mean, Ryan Reynolds, hello.
I mean,
right? Like, and I know plenty of men that are like, I don't blame you.
Seriously, and it's so funny because whereas men are more visceral, women are more like, as long as you can make me laugh.
Yes,
that is like the number one thing.
Who framed Roger Rabbit? Why does Jessica Rabbit fall in love with Roger? And what's her answer? Because he makes me laugh.
Exactly. You don't hear guys saying that though.
No,
because she makes nowadays like, cause she's fine and she's got a big butt or whatever it is.
I mean, I do know plenty of men that are like, okay. In fact, I would say most men, even still, like, in order to have an actual relationship with somebody, there's got to be more to them than looks.
Yeah.
Like, I'll hit it. They might say, I'll bang that or have sex with that. But I'm not going to marry that if she's too dumb or she's not, you know, she can't do this or she can't do that, depending on what their deal breakers are, you know.
Do you find that there's still like a double standard alive as far as like the, you know, if a woman has sex, she's a whore.
Yep.
But if a man does it, he's getting high-fived by his friends. I can't tell you how many guys are still like, I'm not going to marry, you don't, what do they say, you don't turn the hoe into the housewife?
Yep.
And they literally, like, I mean, a lot, like majority of the guys I've talked to and dealt with kind of feel that way. And it's like, you feel as a woman like you can't always, you don't want to lie to your partner. And I mean, do people really, I don't even think people even ask anymore, like how many people
never ask or answer that question.
Right.
There is no reason in the world either of you should know how many people your partner has slept with. No, don't.
I mean, like,
ask
how do
it.
people ask that? Like, what is your point? Like, is it like if that number was one too many?
I think because that goes into the idea of like, okay, how many people have you been with? So how many people can you compare me to? Am I better than?
It's ego.
You know, it's an ego thing. But then once you find out that number, man, it stays in your head. It will stay in your head, and you know, while there are certain people and who can honestly say it really doesn't bother me.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the vast majority of people would be lying if they said that. Right, wrong, or otherwise. I wish it wasn't that way because there's shame involved in that, but there is no reason for anybody to know anybody's specific number.
Yeah. And, you know, that's the thing. I think it's like, you know, back in that generation in the 90s, it was so hardcore of if you can do it, we can do it, and women liberated to that point. And, but guys have not changed. It's just us. We've changed as women, but guys still kind of old-fashioned when it comes to...
if you put out on the first night, it's...
You must have done it with everybody else.
Yeah, which isn't necessarily true, and that's a terrible way of looking at things, and I wish things were different because, you know, sex is great and people like... Not everybody. There are people that don't like sex, but there are lots of people that do, women and men included, and so, you know... it shouldn't be judged on how soon or how long it takes
Yeah.
somebody to have sex.
Well, one of the questions this article talks about when it says one of the things that you should definitely ask before you commit is how is the sex? Because if, like we talked about, level of desire, issues with attraction, huge differences to your preferences, but don't bury your head in the sand on this one.
Yeah.
I think this is super important because sex can get better with time, but if it isn't working from the start, don't assume it will drastically improve over time.
And now that's a tricky one, because what about the women and the men who are waiting to have sex before they get married?
Ooh, see, that's why people don't do that anymore. I mean, I know they do. I'm just kidding. Back in the day, we used to get tricked and we got stuck, and now it's like,
Yeah. So, I mean, it's hard to know, is the sex going to be good if you're waiting? But if you're one of the couples that isn't waiting to have sex before marriage, then yeah, I think that's a valid question, because
I think they should at least show it to them.
what, before marriage?
I mean, at least let them know what you're getting. Like, don't be like, because there's some issues out there. So,
No, but I mean, a man with a micro penis deserves love too.
with what? Or with who? Like how?
whomever.
That's a real situation, though.
It is a real situation.
Like
There's a
I feel
whole
sorry
Netflix
for
documentary
them.
on it too. I know it is. It's hard.
It looks like a belly button.
I know.
It's like an Audi.
You're gonna get me in trouble. No, but they do, and honestly, there are plenty of women out there who really aren't going to care about that. If you're willing to go down on her,
Yeah.
if you're willing to
Strap on,
elicit,
maybe?
and yeah, there are tools and
Can you
techniques
ask
to
them
use
that?
with that. Definitely.
Like, I mean, but how do you have that conversation? I mean, like, I'm a comedian, so I joke around. But how do you, as a guy, I cannot imagine how horrid that must have to be.
Yeah.
When you have to tell your partner like everything you think you're worried about cheating, you ain't gotta worry about that. But I'm saying but how does a man tell a woman like, yo? So a couple things didn't develop on me, and but do you think there's women that are really cool with that?
yeah, absolutely. Definitely.
And then do you think it's offensive to the guy if she asks him to use toys and stuff like that?
I think that's a conversation, and if it's something that, if she really enjoys penetration, because let's get real here. Here is some stats about, give or take, 70% of women achieve orgasm through clitoral stimulation. So the size of the penis honestly isn't going to make a whole heck of a lot of difference if he's great with his tongue or he's great with his hands. So there doesn't need to be that piece for a large chunk of women. There's only about 20% of women that get off through penetration and or clitoral stimulation. So,
Now I see why swingers was invented.
Swingers, that's a whole, we can
I'm
do
kidding.
a whole episode on swingers. No, I'm for
it's like-
relationships and swinging. Like there's a lot of people think that it's going to kill the relationship, and it doesn't necessarily have to. There's ways to go about making sure that your primary relationship, your marriage, or your committed partner is number one.
Wow, I can't even imagine. Like, how do you have that conversation? I mean, geez, it's one thing to say I want to do a threesome, but to say I want to swap, I mean, I'm sure you've seen couples like wind up in disaster over that too.
There are, because they've gone about it in the wrong way, or the number one rule of any open relationship, if you are going to be in an open relationship, is unless you start out like kind of going into the relationship with like, we're both swingers, we're both in an open relationship, but even then I would still say the number one rule is, if at any point one of us wants out of the swinging lifestyle or the open relationship lifestyle, then the other person has to be willing to really think about, am I willing to give this up?
Would you recommend that lifestyle for people that have trust issues? Because I would think
for trust issues, no. There's a good workbook called the Jealousy Handbook that I think a lot of couples who might be considering opening up their relationship can work through, to kind of figure out like, how might this affect us and where might some of our jealousy issues go wrong. But there are lots of different ways to spice up the relationship that don't include actually introducing another party into the relationship. You can, role play or whatnot. That can still be fun. But yeah, if you can get to a place where you trust your partner and understand your boundaries and have really good communication, then it can really work for a lot of couples.
Interesting. Do you find that this is something that, is there a point when these couples have children? Is it because, do you tell your kids you're a swinger, or do you hide it from them? Like, how do you feel like that's something that's their business?
That's a really difficult question. I would say ultimately, eventually, is it their business? Probably not their business, but it also, in trying to mitigate the idea of shame surrounding sex, is it something that you necessarily keep hidden? And but there's an age appropriateness to it,
right?
And it depends. You look at like what's that TV show? I think it's up in Utah about the guy that's married to like 5 different women or whatever.
I saw that.
They have children together, and so at that point, like, you're going to tell them, well, like, I have several wives, kind of aspect. And what does that mean for them? And when you go to school and you see people with only 2 parents and whatnot, how does that affect them versus swinging? Swinging is typically, just polysexual. It's only about the sex. So that's a little bit different. But when you're in a polyromantic relationship, and you have kids in that polyromantic relationship, well, then, obviously you're going to have a little bit more of a conversation with your children about that.
Exactly. Yeah, because it's really just about, being true to yourself and, having those real honest conversations. I think so many times you can save yourself a lot of heartache just by being authentic and being real. One of my biggest complaints I have as a matchmaker is that people lie on their online profiles and stuff like that about their marital status. Because I would say 99% of my matchmaking clients do not want to date somebody that's separated just because it's tricky. Yeah. It's really, you're truly getting entangled, which the whole Jada's said the interview. Entanglement is a new word now, right? But that's the thing, but it can be really tricky, and I think it's really important about, just really having these conversations, because if you're legally separated, you are still married, period. Don't leave. And the first thing they do is they go online and get a dating profile and put single. Then you gotta, at some point, then you've gotta reveal, well, I'm not really single. Right. I even thought about creating a dating service called Separated Singles. Just because people do want to date, and they want to get out, and that old saying, best way to get over is get under a new one.
Yeah, but again, that goes back, going back to your point, if you have not healed from that divorce or from that separation or whatever you experienced in that marriage, it's too soon.
It is too soon. I'm telling, because especially with separated people, you don't know if you're going to get back together. I mean, anything could happen, especially if there's kids. I mean, it's not done yet, because even when you're divorced, I mean, even years after the divorce, it's still, because if you don't, it's even when you want the divorce, it's still hard. You still got to process it.
Absolutely.
And I think it's, if you jump into that too soon. So do you think that would be a bad thing to have separated people dating, like in that situation?
It depends on how long they've been separated and what led to the separation.
Because I want to keep that, I think it would just help a lot of the people that truly are single if they didn't have to filter through all the separated people posing as married and catfishing them. Yeah. And then if the married people or separated people could start off by saying, I am separated, then at least if it does lead to something deeper, then you didn't lie to them.
Right. So exactly. Now, I think that there is something to be said for, I'm separated and I'm not looking for anything serious. I am looking for just to have sex or to just have fun and to get out there. Yeah. I don't think that there's anything necessarily wrong with that. But if you're going, I'm looking for my next girlfriend or my next husband or whatever, and I just moved out of the house 2 months ago. Yeah. Come on, you need therapy. And that would be the other thing that I would say is when you're talking about creating that dynamic of, is it okay to what do you think about this idea? I would say, have you been to therapy?
Yeah.
Were you going to therapy before you separated? I think those are some really good questions to ask before agreeing to set them up with somebody.
Interesting. Okay. Well, we got to take a quick break. Today, we're talking with sex therapist Jen here on the Matchmaker Hotline. We are discussing an article, the select7.com, and it is basically your matchmaker must. 7 questions to ask before you commit, keyword before. And when we come back, we're going to go over the last 4 topics because we need to know, are you on the same page when it comes to family? That is a huge one.
Ooh, yeah.
You guys stay tuned. We'll be back in about 2 minutes right here on the All New Matchmaker Hotline.
So let's talk a little bit about intuitive communication. You know, one of the things that I've always found very fascinating is how we instinctively have a connection to one another. And it's one of those things that no one can really explain. They just seem to feel it. I've always believed that in the realm of creativity, we're connected to a higher source. Some people call it the morphic field. Some people call it the cause of all causes, or the knowing, or God, or any number of different things. And whatever your belief systems are, you can appreciate that we all have a higher intelligence. And that's why when I look at what is happening in the world right now with vitriolic speech and with people who are promoting hate and divisiveness, it's really a sad state of affairs. I mean, if you think about the beauty and the diversity that we have on this planet, you think about all the amazing people that can contribute amazing things. There's not one person that has not experienced some foreign food, some ethnic flavor that you absolutely love to this day. Well, what if that person didn't exist? What if everybody just ate this one thing that was part of your culture? You see, that would take the fun out of life. Same thing with music, same thing with fashion, same thing with architecture, same thing with every form of artistic expression. That's what our Creator had in mind when He put us on this planet.
Hey guys, welcome in to Tough Love Tuesdays here on the All New Matchmaker Hotline. It's your girl Matchmaker Amber Neal. You're listening to Edge Radio at 101.7 FM, 1540 AM on the All New Matchmaker Hotline. I'm so excited to have sex therapist Jen in the building. Welcome back into the show. Thanks. And that first hour just flew by. Hopefully we've been giving you some really great tips on how to keep give you singles some tips on how to ask the right questions before you commit into a relationship. We're going over an article in the select7.com if you want to follow along. It's matchmakers must. Those questions you've got to ask, and we've identified that number 1, you've got to find out if you trust your partner. Number 2, do you accept each other as you are? Number 3, how's the sex? Because, you think sex is just sex, but it's really not when it comes to compatibility. If you guys want to jump in on the conversation, if you have a question for myself or sex therapist Jen, give us a call today on the hotline, 281-587-1540, 281-587-1540. And let's get back into the article. So the number 4 question that you must ask before you commit is, are you on the same page when it comes to family? And since it's easily one of the most impactful decisions you'll make together, you should be mostly in agreement as to your desire to have kids, how many, when that's going to happen. And it's okay if you're still undecided, and feel open to the possibility. But if you have a strong opposing opinion, like, maybe we're going to have kids, and in today's world, you're like, I am not bringing kids into this crap. But when you first met them, you were open to that. So I think if that changes, you definitely want to have that conversation, right? Mm-hmm. And it just is basically beyond just the questions of children. What are your feelings about the role that your in-laws play in your lives? Because meddling in-laws is like a super contentious place, right?
Yeah, can be for sure.
I think it's really hard when you don't have like so we were talking about the couple on Married at First Sight, and with Jamie and Doug, and that was one of the things. She comes from a very toxic, her mom was an addict, broken family, never saw that family unit, didn't have a dad, and then she married Doug, who has two great parents that spoiled him to death. And I think it's when you've been raised so differently. I've said before too, it's like I feel like, okay, we're from different sides of the tracks. We grew up different ways.
Yeah.
Or our conflict resolution skills are totally different, or maybe we don't have any, and it's literally, it can be very hard. I think how important is it to discuss how you were raised?
Oh, vital, because it shapes. I mean, look, let's talk about Freud for just a second. Everybody's heard of Freud. Freud is all about the sex. He's all about, boys wanting to have sex with their mothers and girls wanting to have sex with their fathers. That's not necessarily true.
Right.
But what he did get right is that how we were raised shapes how we are, or how we can be as adults.
Let me tell her. Oops, it's not showing on here. Just showing you, the feed's not showing.
So how we were raised definitely affects us. There was this nature versus nurture. How much of what creates humans and even animals in the animal kingdom, how much is created by our DNA and our genetics, and how much is created by how we grew up in the environment in which we were raised. So.
Yeah, I think it's so important. I mean, I just think it's important to discuss that, especially when you plan on having children together and you're going to find out how to rear the kids. I mean, because, nowadays when we grew up, man, we got beat. Our parents beat the crap out of us. The neighbor could beat the crap out of us. The guy in the grocery store could beat the crap out of us. The teacher definitely could. But nowadays, it's like, you better not touch my kid.
Yeah, I remember that was starting when I was a kid. I mean, I'm 38 years old, and I remember my mom would write letters, or would write a letter to my school that they were not allowed to do any corporal punishment on me,
really,
whatsoever. They had to be signed off on, so they could not do anything. But yeah, even when I was growing up, I never saw any teachers hit a student even when I was growing up either. But still, I know that it did occur up until the 80s and
I remember being in 6th grade, and my teacher, we were stupid, climbing through desks. I don't know, we were 6th grade being stupid. And 4 of us, they're like, okay, go out in the hall, and the teacher would keep her paddle on the chalkboard. Wow. And she was like, okay, we had to go outside and take licks. And my dad was always like, if you get licks at school, when you get home, you're going to get it worse. Mm-hmm. But I was not about to take those licks. I'm like, there's no way. Yeah. And so I didn't take them. And I called my dad. Ooh, I got my ass beat. I got in so much trouble. But that's a big argument among parenting styles nowadays.
Absolutely.
Is like,
how do we discipline?
Mm-hmm. Because if you grew up like me, and especially if you're biblical, spare the rod, spoil the child, however you want to look at it, we grew up children ought to be, when my dad say children ought to be seen, not heard. As grown folks are talking,
Yeah.
But nowadays, I think parents are scared of their kids. They're scared the kids are going to call the police on them.
Because it's happened. I mean, but I think that it's also, they've done a lot of research on, classical conditioning and operant conditioning and how to raise children and be more successful. And a lot of the research has shown that spanking them either doesn't help or creates more problems than being able to talk to them about their emotions and helping them understand their emotions, or it creates more successful adults when you teach them how to communicate.
Yeah, but have you ever seen the movie Chucky?
I was just about to, but I have definitely known other people who will sit there and they will say, you know what, if I hadn't gotten spanked, I can 100% guarantee you I would not have turned out as good as I turned out.
That's me, because I was bad.
It's so hard. Parenting is one of the most difficult things that anybody can ever do. And, so I tell parents, I have a phrase that as long as you are not abusing or neglecting your child, you're doing okay.
Yeah.
Parenthood is all about survival. You're surviving it. You know, and we grow up and we can be so angry at what our parents did wrong, and then we become parents ourselves and can go, okay, I can understand. They were doing, you know, yes, you can read Mr. Spock's handbook on, you know, whatever, but there really isn't a manual on how to raise your individual child and what is going to help them the most to create that. And so you have to learn it as they grow, and your first child can be totally different than your second child.
Oh yeah. I think of I have two younger sisters. Man, we are so different, especially, and you know, it's interesting because like my sister is really trying to launch her own business, and you know, it's like I think the younger ones kind of live in the shadow a little bit, and I think that's why can be that resentment with that first child, you know, because there's so much excitement around the first child, and everybody's sterilizing things and doing everything the right way, and you're not wearing hand-me-downs, but by the time you get to the second child, you're getting all the used bottles, you're getting all the used clothes. I mean, hey, don't complain, you get a used diaper, you're okay. That's how.
But the second child often also has less rules because so there's a lot of resentment that goes from the first child, the second to the youngest child, to the second child, in that sense of like, I got grounded more often, or I got spanked, and my parents didn't, you know, they decided they weren't going to do that with their second child, and you know, so there can be some differences there, and seeing, well, they're the baby, or if you have a boy first and then a girl second, or vice versa, like what that you know, there is a way in which we there's a gender difference in how we raise our children too.
One of the things, I'm sure you've seen this too, is, you know, speaking of sex therapy, there's children. I mean, one of the things I've seen couples fight over is how long they keep the kids in the bed with them or in the room with them. Yeah. How do you get past that? Like, dude, like, I mean, they're like a certain, is there an age? Is there, you know what I mean? Like,
I don't know what the stats say on that. I need to look that up a little bit more, because, you know, I would say no longer than a year. Get them out of your room by the end of their first year.
I think that would kill intimacy.
Oh, yeah.
Like they're in bed with you. I mean, it's already hard enough to like make time to be intimate when you're both working and getting it in, but you got a baby in the bed too. Yeah. And I think a lot of times men become kind of not jealous, but
we have a saying. Another saying that's very common amongst marriage and family therapists is, you know, I'll ask, when did you divorce your husband and marry your children?
Oh, ouch.
Yeah. Yeah. Because that does, it happens so frequently. And so like when I'm trying to explain to people like the hierarchy of what your priorities are, you do have to still put yourself first. I know that sounds selfish, but yourself first, your marriage second, then your kids. And I always say, as far as God goes, I will never dictate that. You get to place that, place him on the hierarchy or her on the hierarchy or whatever your beliefs are. Yeah. I'm just talking about in your interpersonal and intrapersonal relationship, where those go. And it's yourself, then your marriage, then your kids. One of the healthiest things you can do for your children is show them a healthy relationship. Now, if you don't have a healthy relationship, don't put your marriage first. Like, that's where you have to put yourself first and then go, okay. But then the next relationship that you do get in, you can still use that relationship as a way to show your kids a healthy relationship.
It's interesting because you said yourself first, and that is, I swear, it just seems so cliche for so many years. Oh, you gotta love yourself, and it really is so true because
God, yes.
It's amazing how many times you will reject love because you don't feel like you deserve it. Mm-hmm. You're not worthy of it.
Or you'll accept something. You'll settle for something.
Oh, that's so sad.
Last time I was on, we talked about narcissism, right?
That's the worst. Oh, man. You're just going to... I can't. Like, I just can't. I mean, life is too short, and I cannot teach my kids that that's okay. You know? I mean, that's just not cool with me.
Yep.
Okay, so this is one of my favorite topics to talk about. Number 5 advice here on 7 questions you should ask or know before you commit. If you're just tuning in, we're going over an article. The select 7 is Matchmaker Must. And today's Tough Love Tuesday. So we're giving you some tough love on things you should ask before you commit to a relationship so that you're not miserable as hell. Life's too short. There's like 7-8 billion people on the planet, and you really are going to be miserable over one?
Yeah.
Come on, you really need to get into some therapy, and we are an advocate for therapy here. Go see Jen because, it'll make a difference. I mean, I even myself, I went on such a huge self-love journey when my father passed away to really heal from some of the things that I've been through in my life. And it's amazing the difference in the kind of man you attract once you're healed compared to
for sure.
before.
For sure.
You do have to love yourself first. And it's important to always keep yourself first. And it's not selfish because you got to maintain that so that you can, be the best partner, right?
Yeah.
Because if you're depleted, drained, miserable,
right.
Everybody, what they say, mom's not happy, no one is.
Yeah, I actually, happy wife, happy life. No, happy relationship, happy life. I know that doesn't rhyme, but it isn't all about her. You got to have happy men too.
Right, that's right.
In a heterosexual relationship.
It's so true. It's amazing how much heartache you'll save yourself if you just stop and slow down and build the friendship and find out, what do you think about kids and how do you raise them and what kind of relationship do you have with your family? One of the things that there's you've heard the saying a mama's boy, and then but to me I think that it's a little bit more difficult to deal with a man who hates his mother compared to a man who is in love with his mother to a point that no woman is good enough. Both can be extremely challenging.
Oh, for sure.
Do you find that, when a man hates his mother, do you feel like that's an indication that he's going to feel a generality as far as women go?
That's a difficult question. I think that can play a role, definitely. But it doesn't necessarily have to. Again, if he's got, let's because narcissistic women, narcissistic mothers exist.
Oh, yeah.
And so, there is this idea, just because they're your parents doesn't mean that you have to have a relationship with them. And, so getting out of that toxic relationship with your parents, but I do know a lot of women that are depending on how he treats his mom is how he's going to treat you. And while I would say that by and large, if their mom isn't a toxic person, that's a pretty good rule of thumb. I'm not going to lie. That's a pretty good rule of thumb. But if their mom is toxic and really just narcissistic and not going to change, then that you shouldn't go by that. And that's hard to know, though, is their mom narcissistic, or are they narcissistic and just saying that their mom's the one? If you've never met that woman, if he's already cut her out, it's hard to know. And that goes back all the way to the very first one. Do you trust him?
It really does. And I've seen that situation where the man will come in and he'll play the victim of the way his mother supposedly treated him, and then when you meet her, you find out that they're birds of a feather, and maybe, she may have made him to be just like that. I mean, what else can he learn, right?
Sure.
But just because you've grown up in a curse or you've seen a toxic behavior, at some point, you guys, the best advice I can give you as far as back to what you said about the self-love journey and yourself first is you got to quit believing your BS. You got to get out of your way. You cannot have a victim mentality and change your life. You're only as sick as your secrets, and until you get to your truth, your real truth, not the ego truth that masks all the pain to make you feel like no one is you're perfect. You don't do anything wrong.
Right. You have to be able
the ego hates that. The ego doesn't want you to sit there and say okay, I do have some BS ways. I can be kind of wrong sometimes, you know?
Definitely.
And I think it's so important to just be truthful with yourself. Why is that so hard? people are just like, don't want to get to that part. You know what I mean? Like, I want to do the self-love journey, but I find that women will start the self-love journey, but then when it gets into like being alone and not dating losers and just settling, it's like that being alone part.
Yeah.
It's so hard. Is that deeper? Is there something like way more like deeper in that situation?
I don't know how much deeper it is versus just human nature. I mean, we weren't created to be alone.
Right.
Really, truly, and honestly. We were created to live in tribes and communities.
Exactly.
And unfortunately, now the way society has developed, our tribe and our community often just exists of one person. And so when we're forced to be alone, it's hard to find that community and that tribe and without looking for a partner.
One of the things people are really going through right now with COVID is depression. A lot of depression. That's one of the things I wanted to kind of touch on just briefly is when you're dating someone who's dealing with depression, it's a totally different ball game.
Yeah.
And understanding that those mood swings are going to be real and how to not, internalize.
Yeah. That, but I would say even more so as the individual experiencing the depression, working on that and trying to figure out how does this affect me? How could this affect my partner? And taking ownership of it and not blaming or victimizing themselves either. I think that's, being depressed is a real thing, and it's a difficult thing to manage, but there are management techniques. And if you're not going to therapy to figure out what those are for you and to work on them, and you're just sitting in that, well, I'm depressed kind of aspect, then you're just finding you're just blaming something and you're not actually working on anything.
Exactly.
And that doesn't help either.
Relationships are so complicated, and the thing is that people think love is all glitter and rainbows and flowers. Love is hard.
Relationships take work, I would say, and anyone who says otherwise is selling something, and they're selling a lie.
A lie.
Like, it takes work.
It does. Just that compromise level, and just having to put someone before you and think about, like, okay, what are their needs too?
Yeah.
And just going over when you look at what love is, and just the it's patient and kind, and it doesn't hold record of wrongs, and it's long suffering, and it always hopes, and it always trusts, and it always perseveres. And it's really, when you think about love, that when you're holding things against somebody, that's not love. And even though you might be hurt, doesn't mean you can't be hurt and heal through it. But if every time you're getting in an argument, you find that you're bringing up that old crap, you're not healed from that. And that's eventually going to wear thin, because even the Bible says a nagging woman will drive a man to the corner of a rooftop. Men hate a nag, and you're going to get...
Women don't like being nagged.
I don't like a nag.
Yes, men don't like nags, but then again, you have to take ownership of what are you doing that is, this woman is continuing to nag you. Are you not working on your stuff too? Or, what is going on your end? Because women, it's not like we go, I can't wait to get married so I can nag the crap out of my husband.
I know, right?
Like, that seems like so much fun to just sit there and go, hey honey, hey honey, hey honey, hey honey.
Yeah. Oh, God, that's annoying.
It goes both ways.
Yes.
So that's where communication comes into play. Like, if you don't want to be a nag, you have to be able to communicate more effectively with your partner. And if you don't want your partner to be a nag, you have to be able to communicate more effectively with your partner and hear them as well. So it goes both ways. Nags are not something that just
happen. That's why when you hear a guy say, oh, my ex is crazy.
Yeah,
not usually. I mean, there can be a few out there, but... that's a BS excuse. They don't want to tell you the truth about themselves.
Yeah.
If every ex in their past is crazy, you might be the common denominator, bro. That's all I'm saying. I'm going to say 2 words and tell me the first thing that comes to mind, okay?
Okay.
Relationship fraud.
Like, I'm assuming, do you mean like when they're lying about themselves?
Just
and
anything.
What they are?
So for example, when I say it, I mean this. when you said, women can't wait to get married, get married and be a nag, women can't wait to also, I saw this one meme, it said, he married me, I got him now I can get fat. That is relationship fraud to me.
Yeah.
That is not that's not the package you sold. And people are like, oh, that's shallow, you shouldn't feel that way. No, I feel like that's what he likes or what she likes. And I think if you start looking like you're wearing your sensible mom jeans and you throw away all your heels and then you wonder why he's eyeballing the secretary.
Yeah. I have had several couples that have come to therapy because he has ended up telling her, I'm just not sexually attracted to you anymore because you've gained so much weight, and it is the hardest thing.
It's so hard. Like, I feel for her, but like, I don't.
Yeah, I do. And in some cases,
like a thyroid,
it's a medical issue. And so then it's, and in a lot of cases, every single time these couples have come to me, the men feel terrible about it.
I'm sure.
Again, it's not like they necessarily signed up to no longer find their wife sexually attractive, but it is, it is a big issue. And how do you work on that? And what does that mean for the two of you?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think there's positive ways that you can say, hey, babe, especially go to the grocery store with her and like help maybe pick out food or like volunteer to go on a walk in the evenings. Like, there's ways you can probably tell your spouse that you're like, okay, you're getting fluffy, but we need to work on, because I know a lot of us packed on some quarantine.
Oh, yeah. What is it? Quarantine 15 or COVID 15 or whatever. COVID-19, but they're not. Yeah. But how do you? I mean, how do you say that in a way, like, you can say it with as much compassion as you can muster and as much love as you can muster, and that all that person is going to hear is, I'm not enough.
Yeah.
And I'm fat.
And then that's going to start triggering insecurities and like, okay, are you cheating on me?
Yeah.
Is there somebody else? But ladies, it's better for your man to give you the brutal truth of, hey, I'm just not attracted the way I used to be.
Yeah.
Would you rather him say that in therapy, or would you rather him say, I've been screwing XYZ because I'm not attracted to you anymore?
Right.
If he's willing to talk about it before it gets to that.
Right. But the danger of that is anytime somebody has an affair is I want to say never, but I'm not going to say never, but I'm very rarely the other person's fault. I don't care how much weight they've gained. If you did not communicate it first to that person that you were struggling with attraction, it is 100% the person who had the affair's fault. Like,
yes.
You didn't communicate that. So if you go out and you have an affair and then come back and say, well, I had an affair because you're fat, that is horrible. That is, you need to have that conversation of, I am not feeling attracted to you anymore, before you have sex with anybody else.
Yeah.
Like, that is, and you cannot blame that person for your affair.
That's the thing that kills me about a lot of the things you hear with couples that go wrong. Like, if they would have just talked about it, like, just say something, just let me know that you don't like that or something's changed. Like, give me a chance to fix it. Leave the marriage, like, or say you don't want to be with the person anymore before you just, why add insult to injury? Why crush their spirit when they're already going to be brokenhearted if you're not attracted? Yeah. And then you're going to go cheat on top of it? Like, dude, like, just have some boundaries with yourself. Like, just be a man or woman or man enough to leave. Don't hurt people just because, if you're not attracted, cool, okay? Yeah. But before you leave, get in therapy. Therapy is great. Therapy is meant to help you.
Yes.
You just got to use it, though.
Yes.
I don't know why people are so scared to ask for help. And
I will also say this. So many people come to therapy when it's already, I'm not going to say too late, but I will say too late, for lack of a better way of putting it. It's already too late.
Yeah.
Therapy is, I think should be, you look at it as not reactive but preventative. Be going to therapy before there's an issue. Start going to therapy as if you're going to the dentist's office. Like,
exactly.
Go for a checkup, even if you don't think anything's wrong with your relationship.
Yeah.
Just go in for a 30-minute session or an hour session and just say, like, is there anything here that you can see? Is there anything going on? And then go back 6 months later, and then, you know, or a year, 6 months to a year later. Like, just check in every once in a while with a therapist about where things are. Will save, I think would save marriages versus once you've had the affair or once this stuff has come out and then you're trying to go to therapy to fix it. That makes your job and our job as my job as a therapist much more difficult.
Seriously. Well, we got to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to finish the last 3 tips on things you should definitely talk to your potential partner about before you get into the commitment level, because man, communication can go a long ways in saving you and that other person a lot of heartache. We're in studio today with sex therapist Jen, and you're listening to Edge Radio at 101.7 FM, 1540 AM. It's your girl Matchmaker Amber Neal. Give us about 2 minutes and we'll be back. If you want to call into the show, join us on the hotline 281-587-1540. See you in just a minute.
Edge Radio Network, where we have conscious conversation.
Edge is about love, relationships, and healing.
Edge Radio is for everyone and about everyone.
Edge is about working together.
Edge Radio is about recreating a beautiful body.
Edge is about community, synergy, and empowerment.
Edge is about being kind, compassionate, and loving to all.
And Edge Radio is about beauty and fashion.
各位观众 ，Edge Radio 是大家最好听的一个电台，不要忘记听哦。Yeah, I love Edge Radio. You can hear all about the topic and join us soon.
Edge is about being on the edge and not jumping. Yes.
When people stop talking to each other, society is on the edge. Let's bring them back. Edge Radio, because truth still matters. Been feeling a little edgy lately? Listen to Edge Radio. That'll push you over the top. 1540 AM and 101.7 FM.
Welcome back into Tough Love Tuesdays here on the all-new Matchmaker Hotline. It's your girl Matchmaker Amber Neal. We're in studio today with sex therapist Jen, and we are talking about 7 things that you should ask or talk about before you get committed into a relationship. The matchmaker must. We're going over an article in the select7.com if you want to check that out. This article is written by Ann Parnes. She's a professional matchmaker, life coach, and founder of the New Orleans matchmaking service Match Made in NOLA. So all my friends out in New Orleans, give Ann a call and let her know that you heard about us on the Matchmaker Hotline here in Houston. So the next thing that we want to definitely talk about, which I love this subject, is can you speak each other's love languages?
I love love languages.
Don't you love that? It's so real though. Like, it is amazing how you think like touch, or if you think like, okay, we're touching, that's good, or acts of kindness or service or quality time. It's amazing how you really need to go take that test if you haven't done it. I don't care if you've been in a relationship 20 years.
Yeah.
5lovelanguages.com. Go take the quiz. It's free. Go find out. I'm telling you, knowing how your partner gives and receives love is super important. Is that something that you discuss in your practice?
Oh, every time. All the time, definitely. I think the 5 love languages are gold. I don't think that by themselves they are going to be the thing that saves your relationship.
Okay.
But they're a really good starting point, and they're a really good way of keeping things in line and on track.
Yeah.
Definitely. And looking into like, how do you show appreciation and whatnot. Like, oh my God, I love the love languages.
It's interesting because, something as little as like if a man, let's say his love language is giving gifts, and he wants you to do something for him and you don't do it, he's going to be like seriously offended.
Yeah.
Like, you're not giving me back the same gift. I'm like, that's not my love language. My love language is touch.
Yeah. So you have to be able to speak your partner's language. You also have to be able to understand when your partner is speaking theirs to you, because we often speak our own language we speak our own language, right? That way. And so when I'm going through them with my clients, like I'll include that flip side of the coin. So like with verbal affirmation people, I'll say, and the flip side of the coin on that is they can get really stuck on exact words used or tone of voice. So when you hear the person that says, well, why did you say it like that? Or but you said, and their partner goes, but honey, you know that's not how I meant it. I've tried to explain this. I didn't mean that, but you used this word. It's going to usually be a verbal affirmation person.
I just wonder if like I'm that person, because I'm real literal on the exact word you used. And I'm like, well, you know, like I'll give you an example. Like, and we were kidding around, but like this guy I was with, he was like, I said, you're going to cheat on me. You were kidding. And he was like, well, I don't plan to. I'm like, what? I'm like, that doesn't work for me. Like, to me, you should say no, you know? But he's like, but I'm trying to be honest.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I appreciate that, but like, that doesn't make me feel warm and fuzzy inside. He's like, I'm going to try not to. You know, that just, so I'm literally one of those people that like, I listen to the exact way
his answer.
You do? I didn't, yeah.
I love that he said, I don't plan to, I don't want to.
Yeah.
You know?
I'm here now.
Yeah.
That just,
because you can't promise that promise. You said anybody's capable of it. So, but
that's a tough one. That's a tough one. But I am that person, but I can understand, like, so I guess I am that word, that affirmation. It's like exactly how you say it. Mm-hmm. You know, because I always think of words of affirmation. I think, you know, like, oh, you look beautiful, and like, I love you so much, like, I'm affirming you, but I never think about it like from that point of the flip's interesting.
Yeah, so the flip side of the coin for low access service, you'll hear them often say lack of consideration. That's kind of their key phrase. Giving people their flip side of the coin is they don't really thrive off of like just money or gift cards to places, unless it's like their favorite store in the entire world. Then they might. Quality time, flip side of the coin on that one is depends on how they view quality, first of all.
Yeah, exactly.
If you're not giving them that time, you know, if you're on your phone, that quality time person is like, you're not spending time with me. What do you mean? I'm here. We're on the couch together.
Yeah.
But it's not quality because you're on your phone.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, and then physical touch, you know, obviously, I mean, maybe not obviously, but if you're not being touched by your partner and you're a physical touch person, that's, you know, you're not going to feel very loved.
Yes, I know I'm a touch person. It's like I tried a long distance relationship and I could not.
I don't know that I can do that either.
I can't, like, you know, because I want to be loyal. So for me, it's like there's just not, it's just not enough, you know, when your love language is touch. And I think those are things you really want to know about a relationship before you go in, and know what your truths are about that kind of thing, because if your love language is touch, a long distance relationship can feel pretty brutal.
Yeah, and you have to be really, like, when I work with 5 love languages and I'm teaching them about it, I'll say, when you're first learning it, he calls them languages because you have to learn it, and they take practice to get there. And so a lot of people will feel like it's disingenuine. You know, let's take verbal affirmation for just a second, and the girl that's like, well, you know, you haven't told me I'm pretty yet, and he goes, why do I have to tell you? Or, well, now you've asked for it, so now I don't. Now I feel like it's, well, were you thinking I'm pretty?
Right.
Well, yeah. Then is it a lie? No.
Yeah.
Okay, then say it. Even if she's asking for it, say it anyway. It is not disingenuine. It may not have as much of an impact, but say it anyway. Or if he's asking you to do something that you're willing to do, you know, just because he's asked for it doesn't mean, well, now it doesn't feel genuine because you've asked for it. Like, do it. Like, that's the only way to practice, is by being reminded, hey, this is my love language. Can you follow through on it, please? It's not disingenuine. There is genuineness in the practice.
Yeah. Absolutely. Practice makes perfect.
Yes.
5lovelanguages.com, you guys. If you have a question for Jen, 281-587-1540. Call the hotline. Let's go over the last two pieces of advice. If you're just tuning in, we're going over an article, The Select 7, written by Ann Parnes. She's a professional matchmaker in New Orleans. Look her up and tell you heard about it on the Matchmaker Hotline. The next one is, how is your communication? These are things you need to know before you commit. Oh my God, I'm telling you, when you're people like us that communicate for a living, if you are, I'm telling you, it is like number one probably. Like if you don't communicate or you're passive aggressive to that point, oh my God, I can't deal with it.
Yeah, and that doesn't mean that you have to be perfect.
Yeah, of course.
Like, I mean, even as a therapist, I myself, like, I can occasionally just be like, I have my moments. Everybody has their moments.
We do.
But it's about being overall, are you able to communicate with your partner? And I would say every single one of those things that has led up to that one, I mean, how many times have I said it? It's all about communicating within each of those things too.
Yeah.
You have to be able to talk about the hard stuff just as much as you can talk about the easy stuff. Now, is it going to be easy to talk about the hard stuff?
No.
Are you going to have knots in your stomach when you're talking about it? Probably. But can you do it? Can you do it effectively? Can you figure out a space where you can say the things that you have to say to one another and still feel like that person is going to hear you and validate you?
That's the worst, is when you feel invalidated. That is like absolutely the worst. And the thing about it is according to her article, she said that many studies on marriage identify that a couple's ability to communicate as the most important factor in gauging the marriage's success.
Yep.
And that communication skills can be learned, but you do need to be a willing student. If the disagreement gets ugly and personal rather than addressing the issue, it's not something you can ignore. So many times people attack the problem and not the person. Is that revealing something deeper to you? That, like, if people have, let me ask you this way, like if you have a partner that typically gets angry really quickly, is that just, what do you think? I mean, not that we can identify what causes the anger specifically. Is there a way to kind of help them get through that, or is that just a therapy thing? Like, you need to go to therapy?
I mean, therapy would be beneficial, but absolutely, like, you can figure out what are your trigger points, really doing some mindfulness and being in tune with how your body starts to warm up, for lack of a better way of putting it, to getting to that point of being angry.
Yeah.
So I tell people, I use it in terms of miles per hour. At 0 to 30 miles per hour, that is your safety zone. Once you've hit 30 to 35, your foot is going to get heavier.
Yeah.
And it is going to go from 30-ish to 60, like that. So you have to be able to call a time out in the argument or back it down when you're still in that like 25 to 30 miles per hour zone. That's when you need to start to feel like, okay, I need to take a break from this. I need to step back from this. But if you're super quick to it, you're going to have to retrain your body and your reactions to slow down from the get-go.
I think one of the things that I've heard couples talk about through the years is if let's say that I'm like an A-type personality and there's nothing passive about me at all, which is pretty much how I am. But then you try to be with somebody who, and maybe being passive aggressive actually can be good sometimes, actually, because you're not so confrontational, so full of conflict. Like if you grow up feeling like you're fighting all the time, you without even knowing it, you don't even realize that's not normal. Like there's healthier ways to fight, and I think that you just really have to. That's why we're saying slow down.
Yeah.
Slow down, build the friendship, find out what kind of demons people are dealing with, find out what kind of things that they've witnessed growing up, what kind of things they're healing from, because even when you feel like you're healed from things, it just feels like there's like always that little residual. What is that? Like that little, like, it's just a memory, or
for sure. Like there's a book called The Body Keeps the Score. that I believe talks about that idea of like, even if you feel like you've worked through your issues and you've gotten to that place of forgiveness and healing, that doesn't mean that you aren't still triggered by things. And it doesn't mean that you aren't, that you don't, I mean, forgive and forget. You don't forget.
You really don't,
You don't. So being able to recognize that you're going to have triggers even as you get older. They might decrease, or you might not be triggered as intensely, but to try and think that you might not be triggered at all is illogical.
Yeah. You know, one of the things that you had said earlier about Freud, really being obsessed with women and men want to have sex with their parents. That's kind of gross, but that's really disgusting, actually. But I can see that, like, you see a lot of daddy-daughter dances, daddy-daughter dates, and then showing a woman, a young girl, this is what a man's supposed to do, that sort of thing. And I can see where he was going with that. Yeah. Like, this is where you learn your first thing about the romantic part of a relationship. But I think it's very important that we really identify. So many times we do pick our parents as partners.
So there is the imago therapy will kind of posit that we pick our partners based on unresolved issues we have with them, based on unresolved issues we have with our parents.
Yeah.
And so that's where we tend to, it's not necessarily that we're picking the good stuff, actually. We're picking the partner that holds the bad stuff about our parents.
It's interesting because I know in my own relationship, I did that. I picked somebody that reminded me of the toxic part of my family. Mm-hmm. Then once I went and healed myself, then I noticed I was attracting the good part of my parent. It's crazy how that works. Like attracts like.
Yep.
Interesting. Okay. So we have one more tip, and then coming up next, we got the cutting edge with Al Roundtree. So the last thing here, 7 tips we're going over. If you want to check it out one last time, the Select 7. This article is written by Ann Parnes. She is a professional matchmaker, life coach, and founder of New Orleans matchmaking service, Match Made in New Orleans. And she used to be a district attorney. I'd love to hear her story, how she went from being a district attorney to a matchmaker. But if you hear us out in New Orleans, tell her that you heard it about us here on the Matchmaker Hotline. So the last thing here, the last tip that we're going to give you on things you want to discuss with your partner before you commit is, how do your friends and family feel about your partner? Because while you're not going to please everyone, it should raise concerns if the people who love you and know you all agree that your partner is not right for you. And if you're not sure how your friends and family feel about your partner and your compatibility, ask them to give you their honest opinion. That's a slippery. That's hard. That's a slippery thing, because so many times I've talked about before about how people will blast their partner on social media, or they'll go call their whole family. They'll go call everybody involved, and they're going to go. You come in. They're going to go tell them all their dirt, and then when they work it out, then they look like the fool.
Yeah.
So how much do you recommend for people to get their family involved in their personal life?
I recommend not too much. You do want them to be involved to a certain extent, but if, let's say, we keep bringing up affairs, but if your partner has an affair and there's even a remote chance that you might work it out with them, you want to be very careful who you talk about that affair with.
Seriously.
And then, keeping in mind that if you're constantly just calling your friends when you're in a fight with your partner, all they're hearing is the bad stuff. So remembering that, like, when your partner's doing something good, call your friends and tell them that too. It's okay to brag about your person.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't all have to be bad, and having that balance so that they understand what the good stuff is, what the bad stuff is, and helping you process that. And let's be honest, know your audience. Like, when you call XYZ that they're going to be your cheerleader, and they're going to go, ooh, F them, like, girl, you can do so much better. Or for guys being like, dude, drop that chick. Like, what's wrong with you? You know who to call whenever you want somebody who's going to be like, okay, what's your role in this?
Exactly.
What's going on with you? And you know, so you know who the different people are. And let's be honest, we need the cheerleader. Even if we stay with our partner, we do need that person that's going to say they're a jerk. Forget them. Even if you know you're not going to actually leave them. Yeah. Like, you know, so know who you're talking to, and know who you divulge stuff to, because it's okay for them to have concerns, and it's okay for your family to, and your friends to, obviously they want the best for you and they just want you to be happy. But yeah,
and I think it, like, especially with like domestic violence situations, if all of your family is telling you that guy is dangerous for you, I would think that would probably be like the one major exception to being careful who you tell.
Definitely. Oh, for sure. Yeah. If there's abuse going on, absolutely, you're going to need their support, because if they don't hear about the abuse, oh my gosh, how many people have been like, oh, well,
I have no idea.
And I mean, and even, you know, we talked about narcissism last time, you know, and that idea of like, out in public or with certain people, they can be charming, they can be wonderful. If people don't know what's going on behind closed doors, they can't help you. So it is a catch-22. It is very difficult on what do you tell, what do you not tell. Is it the occasional argument where he said something insensitive, or you said something insensitive, or she's whatever, you know, I keep saying he because I'm a woman, but she said something insensitive. Are you really going to break up with this person because you got into this fight? Yeah. So who are you going to talk to? Versus abuse. If it's abusive, or if you're questioning if it's abusive, then talk to a therapist. You know, if you're not sure what's going on and if this is something that is unhealthy for you, and you don't want to talk to your family about it just yet, talk to your therapist. They can help you see the signs of abuse that aren't just physical. I mean, their emotional abuse is high.
Yeah, it's super important too. Just, you know, the thing is, just keep your dirty laundry off the freaking internet.
Don't put it on Facebook.
I can't stand when people just blast their spouse and then they get all booed up with them on the next day picture. I'm like, you look like an idiot. All right, guys. Well, that's my advice for Tough Love Tuesday. Keep your dirty laundry in your damn laundry basket, okay? Yes. Jen, thank you so much for coming on today. How do people get in touch with you? Definitely come see you. You're awesome.
Yep. www.houstonrelationshiptherapy.com or Jennifer@houstonrelationshiptherapy.com. That's JENNIFER. Or call our main line, 1-800-913-9613.
Yay. Well, thanks again for coming on. We're going to have you back on in 2 weeks from today. Coming up next is The Cutting Edge with Al Roundtree. He's got some really great things in store for you as usual. But if you want to find out more information about matchmaking, date coaching, you want some help with whatever, give me a call. If you're a business owner, you think we need to meet you, we'd love to meet you too. Go to amberneal.com, and thanks to Meridate.com, all of our guests are going to receive complimentary travel certificates to go travel eventually, right? And y'all stay tuned for Al at the top of the hour, 2 o'clock. Al Roundtree with Cutting Edge is going to be up next, and we'll see you tomorrow on Women's Wednesday here on the all-new Matchmaker Hotline. It's your girl, Matchmaker Amber Neal, and I'll see you guys tomorrow at noon.
During that time, I was an adolescent, and another thing that I struggled with was this idea that my opinion didn't count, didn't matter. And I never forgot, I went to a college, it was in Westchester County, and it was a very affluent community. It was about 90% white. I was one of the few specks of pepper in a sea of salt, right? And I never forgot, there was this one professor. He was a priest. He had the collar that he wore all the time to Catholic college. He had piercing blue eyes and this ruddy red complexion and snow white hair. And he had a grimace on his face that said, "I hate life and I want everybody to hate it with me." It was that kind of look. And he had the habit of choosing someone to humiliate once a day in his class. And this day, I saw his eyes lock in on me as I walked across the room. And he had a sneer on his face and he said, "I'm getting that one today." And there was a glass of water on that table. And what was interesting was this is an economic class. So the glass of water is sitting on the table. And he looks at me and he says, Mr. Hines, is this glass of water half full or half empty? So I said, I can't answer the question. It's a simple question. Is it half full or half empty? I'm sorry, I can't answer the question. Look, this isn't rocket scientist, Mr. Hines. I need an answer. Is it half full or half empty? I said, I can't answer the question. He said, why? I said, because I don't know how that glass came to be at 50% capacity. You see, if it was an empty glass that you poured to 50% of its content, then it would be half full. On the other hand, if it was a full glass that you poured out half of its content, then it would be half empty. So until I know how that glass came to be at 50%, I can't answer the question. This man turned beet red. Redder than he was when he started. And he literally went, and bit himself, and that scared the heck out of me. He bit himself. And then he said, sit down. Now, I tell that story because in that moment, I realized that my reasoning and my opinion, it mattered. But let's fast forward. Fast forward 12 years later. I'm an adult, I'm sitting home, and I'm watching Johnny Carson, one of my favorite talk show hosts at the time. And in that moment, Johnny introduces Bill Cosby. Now this is before Bill Cosby was whatever you guys think he is now. That was when he was the Jell-O pudding guy, Cliff Huxtable, right? And Johnny welcomes him to the stage, he sits down, and Bill says, I got a story to tell you about